Flight boss, bitch. You know, for sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Antares Moon. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And right now, we're going to talk about Gematria. And what the fuck is Gematria? And I know I'm probably saying it the wrong way, but all you need to know is that it's motherfucking esoteric geometry. That's it. That's motherfucker all. And when we start to talk about esoteric geometry, this is when we start to utilize mathematics in a numerology type of way to put meaning and reasoning behind the things that we're articulating. Now, what are we articulating? Rituals, spells, because for the most part, we create energy. And with this energy, right, we get to create shapes and forms around this energy. And the shapes and forms that we create around this energy is what an actual ritual is. When we start to manipulate energies, manipulate force, manipulate light, manipulate water, manipulate consciousness. Those all one and the same things, just on different frequency vibrations. See what I'm saying? In different densities. But for the most part, these are external energies that we are utilizing to create shapes and forms out of these things. So for the most part, that's us creating rituals. Now, once we have a ritual, right, we can start to create the spells out of the rituals. That's why it's always going to be a multitude of spells that need to go within a ritual for a ritual to actually play out. But for the most part, when we start to talk about spells, here's where we get into spelling, because we have multitudes of shapes and forms that we can utilize. Now, these shapes and forms that we have manifested into this realm of reality that's not quite physical yet, but is getting ready to be physical before our thoughts and our feelings and emotions, which is the first physical traits. That's just lighter in frequency vibration. But the tools that we use as far as the sigils and the symbols and the signs, you see what I'm saying? Not just signs as them being materialized, but the signs as it being the influence, right? The shit that we utilize as rituals to create the spells, we spell these things out. And once we spell them out, we can particularize each individual aspect that we're utilizing. So we may call one a number, we may call one a letter, we may call one a color, we may call even all the way to get to a thought form or feeling and emotion. These are shapes and forms externally also that you need to always remember. But for the most part, when we're starting to talk about Gematria, aka esoteric geometry, this is this understanding the relationships of shapes and forms that's beyond you, and understanding the relationships and how they correlate between each other. So when we want to start to talk about one, we know one is back to supported by us trying to understand what does individuality mean. We know two gets derived from us trying to understand what do duality means. We know three gets derived from us trying to understand our surroundings based upon the realm of reality and the dimension that we're into at the moment, based upon, before we give names and titles and meanings and reasonings to the things and the objects that we see in our surroundings. It's just basically our surroundings, and we're like caveman, cavewoman, like trying to develop an understanding of these things. And this is when we was at a very primo stage of life. Therefore, we wasn't utilizing that much of fourth dimensional energies, but as a shift, as an age, and as a collective conscious, we have all moved slightly into the fourth dimension, being born into the third dimension. So now we have all better access and energies and better attributes when it comes to fourth dimensional energies, which is the thoughts and the idea. And for the most part, you need to know that we have started to shift within the fourth dimension the instant humanity has started to derive, and Homo sapiens and things of that nature, and developing a brain that can have the capacity of the awareness to develop a mental body. But that's a whole nother video. You know what I'm saying? You have animals and bugs within the third dimension that was born here that's doing that on a smaller level. But when we're talking about rituals and spells, you need to know that spells is what we're actually utilizing as far as our rituals. And rituals is manipulating energy. And in spirits, we create energies. We create chakras, lights, atoms, emotions, feelings, influences, and things of that nature. And then the ability for a spirit to be a magician and manipulate these things, this what makes a witch or a wizard. Now, a wizard would be a male, a witch will be a female, but for the most part, they're correlated in the same energies. Now, for the most part, a witch will be a little bit more powerful than a wizard, due to the fact that if it's a spirit and a female body, then she's going to have certain shapes and forms and attributes that be able to receive a lot better than a spirit that's in a masculine body. And anytime we're in a realm of reality that's more correlated to receiving, then that lets you know that the feminine energy is going to be a little bit more powerful. So if you don't know how to receive and interpret, then whatever external bullshit that you're pushing out going to matter none. So that's a whole nother video. But for the most part, they're both on the same attribute, and they both got possibilities to becoming a warlord or warlock, and that's what they don't need to be doing. But for the most part, that's another video now. Or sorcerer, and utilizing their sorcery for energies that they don't need to be utilizing it for. Now, when we start to talk about utilizing rituals, right, and utilizing spells, this is spell casting, right? So for the most part, spell is like the energy or the container. So when we talk about the ritual, this would be the shape and form. The energy that we create is shapeless and formless. You know what I'm saying? Every time we create those waters, those fires, those imageries, those ideas, those motion pictures, you know what I'm saying? How we see ourselves, how we want others to see our state of awareness within our state of being a spirit, right? These are shapeless and formless. These are our ghosts. These are mentalities. You ever thought about somebody even when you're not around them? Yeah, they motherfuckers done created a ghost, or you didn't create a ghost that's taking the shape and form of this motherfucking characteristics and this motherfucking vehicle. But that's a whole nother video. I got videos about that. But like I'm telling y'all, when we're starting to create the shape and form and things of that nature, the shape and form is shapeless and formless when it's just being materialized. You could go back to my video about dimensional numerology, when I'm telling y'all the third dimension is predicated on the physical, the sixth dimension, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension is predicated on the material, the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension is predicated on the essence. So something has to be the essence, then it has to be the material, then the material becomes physical. So for the most part, that's letting you know right now the number systems that correlate with each dimension is letting you know which one is material, which one is physical, and which one is from the essence. This is why all mathematics is correlated to the 369. But for the most part, like I said, when we're utilizing this, our magician as spirits, our magic, and for the most part, we're utilizing these things. It's shapeless and formless. Now we have to create a container. The shapeless and formless is the material of it. So we the essence, we the spirit, we the 369. Boom, we create the material, the feelings and emotions of the shit, and how it can be related externally in some way, shape, or form, coming from that feminine space from where our spirit is at. Now, for the most part, that's the material. That's how it becomes material. Now, the longer we think about these things, the hardened up that material can become, and can become a solid or a realm of reality that can be perceived as physical. Now, for the most part, this is where things become as letters, as numbers that y'all see them today, to correlate y'all languages, y'all denominations, y'all religions, y'all number systems, y'all mathematics and shit like that. Now that's when it becomes physical. But when it's just the material, it's getting back to what I'm talking about right now, which is gematria, or motherfucker esoteric geometry. And this is us being able to calculate angels and demons, aka high thought forms and low thought forms. So for the most part, spirits is no thing, no shape and form. Spirits create thoughts and feelings. Now, when a spirit create a high thought, that's an angelic thought. When a spirit create a low thought, that's a demonic thought. So for the most part, spirits always have possibilities to change. It's this when a spirit get lost into one of their lights. And too many spirits get lost into their demonic lights because the light psychs the spirit up. And sometimes when it's lower vibrational lights, that's like a dream that lasts longer than a high vibrational light because it's not getting ready to transform. So a lot of times, a lot of your desires and meanings and reasons to why you even exist resign and lives in the motherfucker lower vibrational animalistic energies that you may carry a lot of times. So it's so easy for spirits to get lost into their demonic energies, but spirits always have possibilities to change. A spirit is not just up flat a motherfucking angel or up flat a motherfucking demon, but motherfuckers can get lost into their motherfucking lights, and to the point that they're gonna have to pick and choose or create some motherfucking balance in their life, what we all should be doing. But for the most part, when we're starting to talk about the shape and form, the shapeless and formless, that's the material. Now you have to create a motherfucker container for it. The daughters of men of it. The material will be the sons of God. The physical will be the daughters of men. So you have a sons of God, you have a solar system, and then it created your daughters of men to go into, which is your physical organs and shit like that got created from it. Same way you got the sons of God up there, then you got the material, the periodic table, and what you think you're walking on, which y'all think y'all calling physical and shit like that. Then you got the essence of shit, which is the spirit. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, you don't have to do no infinite regress no more as long as you're on this motherfucking channel. But for the most part, shout out to the subconscious community and the goddamn soul group in this motherfucking goddamn go live tonight. But yeah, like I was motherfucking saying, when we start to talk about taking the shapeless and formless, now you have to create a container around it. The container is taking the same material that you just created from you being the essence, being the spirit. Now, when you create, because the circle, and when you start to move in it, that's what the 369 is, nothing but reduplications of what a zero is. That's another video. But for the most part, like I was saying, once you start to create the material out of your essence, because you create the material, because you the essence of it, the spirit, boom, you create the material, the feelings and emotions and the influence. Now, boom, you start to create the masculine energy of it, the daughters of men of it. Think real hard about these things and see it how it can play out in multitudes of where, and you create that square out of the circle of it. You see what I'm saying? Now that square is the fourth, is four, is what four is. Four is this 4 different angles. You know what I'm saying? 90-degree angles to complete a square, for you to box yourself out to have your own individual ideas. So this is how we come up with concepts of houses and beaver dams and bees, bee net and bird nests and you know what I'm saying, things of that nature. But for the most part, that's another video when you want to get deep into nature on a real spiritual way. But when we're talking about creating a container, whatever feelings or emotions and influence that you create as far as this material and things of that nature that we create, the container that you create behind it, I mean, the container is when you think all the different scenarios how that influence could play out in. That's when you're starting to create the container. Now the container has a direction, and it has a cup or a holder or a bucket that all that weight can go in, and the more emotion you put in it, the heavier that container is, because the container is the logic of it, the direction where you're pointing it at, the idea, many multitudes of ways it can play out. But the feeling and emotion and the passion and how you feel about it is all the water you putting in it, and that's going to give it the wheels. That's going to make it how fast it goes through the astral realm. You see what I'm saying? To hit the target of the left brain, the container attribute of it, the arrow of it. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, once it become a container, right, the container is what we call things of that nature today. It's like language and mathematics. So you have a lot of containers out here that a lot of y'all just absorb yourselves into, you know what I'm saying, not even knowing that it's a gift and a curse to everything, but y'all are more on the curse end of the things, due to the fact of the people who created these things and them knowing what they was doing, and you not knowing what you're doing, and you utilizing somebody else shit who knew what they was doing, and you being a spirit who truly do not know what you're doing, and then you jump into realms of realities having to use that to know what you're doing into other realms of realities that ain't nothing but offsprings of shit that you're already lost in. So you have to keep that in mind. Indoctrinations go very deep. But at the same time, you know, when we talk about gematria, this is esoteric geometry. So it's the ability to be able to correlate the esoteric energies of what's actually being manifested in front of you today. So when we even talk about four is, like I was saying, 90-degree angles, friction, being able to box yourself out. This gave us the understanding of the number 4. So the number 4 comes from the concept of there being 4 different versions of 1, 2 different versions of 2, 1 version of 3, and then an individual something else, being able to take the attribute of what's ever being able to be 3. So this is being able to 3 is your circle, your surrounding, and the outside attribute will be what you create out of that. So that's the thought about your surroundings. That's what makes mentalities external, 4th dimensional. That's what makes it not you. It's a body that you're creating, and it might be big, it might be so vague to you here you can't see it as a cloud or a star yet, but that's your star. And the more influence you put in that star, more spirit you put in that star, the more that star can emit and have a place in the esoteric realm. So it'd be large down here to us, but due to the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional beings, right, it'd be nothing more but a bacteria or a parasite that one of your parents could breathe in, and you could become one of their motherfucking children if you are individual enough to withstand purgatory within the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, which you have already had an example of that being in purgatory in the 1 and 2 dimension for you to reach the egg to be in the 3rd dimension right now. So you have to keep that in mind. It's the same thing on a higher level. You know what I'm saying? So don't get lost and think shit is pseudo in this motherfucker. Because you was living in a goddamn person and you was born out into a new motherfucking world. You was reborn. You see what I'm saying? So, and you was birthed out. You died from the previous world and got born into a world you knew nothing about. And spirits always have to be born within a shape and form. So you always have to find parents and be born. Otherwise, you're just going to be creating chaos into the people's lives that you're trying to be born within through. So this is what it means by living within a being. And religious people make y'all think y'all need to live in Jesus Christ. But this is what we're all doing as spirits. And this is the reason why you're in your family and in your location that you are in the 3rd dimension right now. You see what I'm saying? So when I explain this in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, don't get lost. It's the same fucking shit. You know what I'm saying? Based upon what you resonate with, and your thoughts and idea is going to resonate with your mother, and first you're going to resonate with your mother in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, whatever state of being and spiritually in her life she's going through. Then whatever male is around her going to kick the masculine energy off and have his thought and idea, and that's going to be your first bloody wound, and then you're going to be able to jump into the physical representation of that bloody wound, which is her egg. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also. But that's a whole nother video, because see what I'm saying, the spirits that's in females, based upon their state of being, right, they attract energy here. And then based upon the state of being that the male is in, he push out the masculine shape and form of the container. You see what I'm saying? So the woman push off the shapeless and formless energy, the state of being that a spirit could just resonate with, to be like, okay, if I just move based upon natural selection, or what I resonate with because it feel good to move in this spot, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a bunch of lights, information, shapes and forms, consciousness that I could jump into, that could be the physical representation of that. Then boom, that's when you jump into your father's mentality, and then don't so on and so forth. They don't tell her how long y'all motherfuckers was living in y'all, and because just because you lived in one person don't mean that you was born out in that person. You could have been in purgatory. Purgatory just means the 1 and 2 dimension. You don't know that you living in people. Same way right now. You in the 3rd dimension, you don't know that you in another version of purgatory. Get ready to get born out. You don't know that. You just think you live a motherfucking life. So for the most part, you need to understand that you probably, as when you was in a 1 and 2 dimension, and you didn't reach the egg, you didn't reach no intelligence, you didn't reach no popularity, you didn't reach no influence in the world. And then when I say popularity, I'm not talking about the way y'all look at it, like celebrity status. Not that. No, I'm talking about popular influence within your own universe, to the point that you make yourself feel like you're the best thing in the world, whether the external world see that shit like it is or not. But for the most part, like I said, when y'all was in a 1 and 2 dimension, right now, your father might have busted a nut or something like that, at jacking off or some shit like that, and it had nothing to do with you going into no other fleshly fluids in the world and shit like that. So as a spirit, you died from those, and you floated off as a space, and then found another shape and form that your father was resonating with. You know what I'm saying? At the moment, that could kind of mimic it. So that could have been his brother, his dog, his snake, his animal, his best friend, the people around that he don't know, but he probably shared an experience with to a certain degree. And based upon the shared influence, you resonated with that enough to be sucked into those lights as a spirit and shit like that. And therefore, you in the same process. You know what I'm saying? You find another state of being, aka a female that's in that area, that's living in a certain spiritual space, so it got a certain state of being essence around that location. And then the males is gonna be pilot senses is gonna be tingling, like what they gonna do with that essence. So then they create the motherfucking container for it, so that end up being the light of it and shit like that. Now, motherfucker, as a spirit, you confused with the moon and light, because that's what females and males are when they be thinking. You know what I'm saying? That you be like moon and light, so your ass end up creating a goddamn shape and form and come into this memory reality. And if you ain't no dumbass and stay in the purgatory for a long time. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of time, this is how you could find out people who stayed in purgatory for a long, who stayed in purgatory in the 1 and 2 dimension for a long time. They come out being scared to die. They come out being scared of life. They come out being scared of going through circumstances and situations because they haven't did it before. So they've been in purgatory in the 1, 2, and 3rd. I mean, the 1, 2 dimension so long. Once they came out in the 3rd dimension, it's like so new, so scary. It's a new world that this what makes them heavy religious and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Or superstitious, or this. You know what I'm saying? Now, this how you know a motherfucker who been in purgatory in the 4th, 5th, and 5th dimension for a long time, and probably came out in the 6th dimension, and probably shit was too chaotic and shit was there. Motherfuckers who don't give a fuck about the physical realm down here, and they know why they back down here again, and they running from everything that caused them to come back down here. So these are the motherfucking martyrs, revolutionaries, motherfuckers who hate religion, motherfuckers who don't give a fuck about going towards protocol or sounding super logical, but still know how to make sense. You know what I'm saying? These motherfuckers that try to run from every sign of light or form of information or consciousness that brought them back down here in the first place, to make them be like, I'm tired of down here. You know what I'm saying? So keep that in mind also. But yeah, we're gonna go live tonight. This is because this is just part 1, but this is because us understanding the relationships and the degrees and the distance between certain stars, bodies of waters, seas. Stars is just a bigger word for ocean, water, light. They're all the same shit. But for the most part, us being able to correlate and us understanding how to contract, how to expand and contract and kind of absorb the influences that these things are actually doing just by them being in the position that they are in. You see what I'm saying? And therefore, this helps us understand how to create language and certain words that deal with opposition, based upon us being able to look at 2 objects that's one individual and being able to see the relationship that these things could have. So it even makes us come up with spiritual consciousness, subconsciousness, knowledge of understanding that what brings together creates balance, but also creates friction. You know what I'm saying? And therefore, we got a multitude of words that we can ring around that and make sense around, and mathematical type of equations. We can make all kind of shit. But that's how, like, this I'm trying to just give you an example of always understand the energies that's back in support and everything. But flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.